Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles. I want to welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamerspro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, where we give you your first perspective on things and how we see them. And in today's show, I have a bunch of topics I want to get into. The first one is, does Kawhi Leonard need to play at least 62 games for the Clippers' chemistry to work this season? And then the second one is, are PG and Kawhi Leonard the best defensive duo in the NBA? And finally, can the Warriors make it back to the top of the Western Conference? So before we get into that, I want you guys to please make sure you go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Be sure to follow Marco and I on Twitter. We've recently opened our Twitter account so we can stay in touch there and communicate with each other off the show. So be sure to subscribe to our Twitter accounts. It's linked in the description below. So with that being said, let's just get straight into the show here. As I said, I got a lot to cover, so I want you guys to bear with me. So let's just take our time and get through the show today. Hopefully, you guys are enjoying these shows. So let's just get into it. Let's talk about Kawhi Leonard for a minute here. So where do we begin? As you all know, Kawhi Leonard is my favorite player. Currently playing basketball, although Kobe is my favorite player of all time. But Kawhi Leonard has had a pretty interesting career up until this point. He's a two-time Defensive Player of the Year, multiple-time All-Star, I think four-time All-Star. Led the league in steals, I believe it was in 2015, and he won an NBA title 2 years ago with the Toronto Raptors, capping off his second NBA title with his second Finals MVP in a very dramatic fashion, given the fact of how he ended his run in San Antonio. And as y'all know, the reason Kawhi Leonard left San Antonio, some people speculate to say, hey, listen, the reason this guy left San Antonio was probably because he just got bored there. He thought that playing under the regime of the San Antonio Spurs and Greg Popovich is a little bit too melancholy, a little bit too boring. So he didn't want to be there anymore. So some people said a couple of seasons ago that when him and the team had a falling out, that he didn't want to play there anymore. Skip Bayless said he quit on the team and all of these different things. Now, we all know that Kawhi Leonard is a great player, but there's one knock that everyone has on him in the NBA, right? It's not that, oh, yes, he had a poor Game 7 and they lost they lost to the Denver Nuggets in a 7-game series, being up 3-1 when they shouldn't have lost that series. But other great players have lost before, right? Other great players have blown leads before. That's not the issue. The issue with Kawhi Leonard is his load management. Right now, all of this started from the fact that when he was with the Spurs, if I go back and I look at Kawhi Leonard's playing history with the San Antonio Spurs in 2016-2017 season, the guy played 74 of the available he played 74 of the available 82 games. The following season, or at the end of that season, if y'all remember, when they were playing against the Golden State Warriors and Zaza Pachulia stuck his foot under his ankle and he fell down, that's when the injury bug hit him. And at that point, he was injured, and some people were saying that he had some problems with his knees. So there was this whole kind of thing going back and forth with him and the team in the offseason. Then what happened? He apparently had got some treatment, did some surgery, whatever the case was, came back the following season and only played 9 games. For the entire season, he only played 9 games. And for the remainder of the season, Kawhi Leonard was nowhere to be found. Some people were like, what happened to this guy for the 73 games or 72, whatever it is, games that were available? He didn't play, right? And him and the Spurs just had a complete falling out. Then he left. He went to the Toronto Raptors and decided, hey, listen, this organization wants me. And I guess the management and all of them took him for under all of the different sort of stipulations that he had in his contract. And he ended up playing 60 games with the Toronto Raptors. And some people around the league were griping and saying, hey, listen, why is this guy not playing games? But some people were saying, hey, listen, the guy's injured. And in fact, in the playoffs, when he got there, especially against, I believe it was the Milwaukee Bucks, there were certain times where you saw he looked ginger, coming up, jumping up and down and landing on his knees. And especially the dunk that he had over Giannis, you saw him kind of like, wincing and all of this stuff. So some people say, is this guy even healthy? Right? So there was that kind of storyline behind Kawhi Leonard. But then he went to the Clippers. Went to play with the Los Angeles Clippers. And to everyone's understanding, I think during the offseason, we all thought that, okay, listen, this guy he had healed and he's healthy now. And when he got to, when he got to the Clippers, a team that had so much expectations on them, he was falling into a team, yes, that the core of the team had been together more or less, although they had traded away some pieces, or some pieces have left. Danilo Gallinari and Tobias Harris and others had left the team. Excuse me, I'm just dealing with a cough here. So he was implemented into a new team alongside Paul George. A team that had already had its culture in place, hard workers, go out there and fight every single night, and they were just all about, putting in the work. And Kawhi Leonard, for the season of the available, 72 games or so, he played 57 games. And in some cases, he would play games, he would look completely healthy, and in the next game, he wasn't there. It turns out the lack of games that Kawhi Leonard played ended up biting the Clippers in the butt at the very end. In some cases, you would see Kawhi Leonard play a stretch of games, then Paul George would sit down. Then Paul George would start playing, and then Kawhi Leonard would sit down. And I'll be asking myself, are these guys injured or is something wrong with them? Now, Paul George you can understand because Paul George is going to play. But Kawhi Leonard, for the last 2 years, has had this history of not playing games. In fact, in his entire career, there has not been one season where Kawhi Leonard has played 82 games at any point. First year in his career, 64. Next year, 58, 66, 64, 72, 74, 9, 60, 57. And with the Clippers, what they need more than anything, well, they need a lot of things, but one of the things that they need is to build their team chemistry. That's one of the things that the Clippers need this season, right? Him missing games actually hurt the team. And the most interesting thing about it all, or the most perplexing thing rather, is after the restart in the Orlando bubble, for those 8 remaining games, Kawhi Leonard played every single game. He played all 8 games. And I think in some cases there were some back-to-backs, if I'm mistaken. Oh no, for the exception, I think he missed the last game. After they had clinched. He missed the last game, if I'm not mistaken. Because they were like, okay, we're going to the playoffs, which is understandable, right? Many players do that, so no one is going to hold that against him. But this season, given the fact that the season is just around the corner, literally, the season is about to start in December, Kawhi Leonard needs to play, in my opinion, at least 62 of the available 72 games. It needs to happen. It needs to happen because what's happening is, number one, it's hurting the team chemistry. Number two, is causing people out there to criticize you unnecessarily. They're saying, wait a minute, does this guy really want to play all the games? Listen, Nick Wright, I don't agree with Nick Wright on most of the things that he says about basketball. Because some of the things he says are outlandish, especially some of his Kobe Bryant commentary. That's where me and him parted ways a long time ago. But on the issue of Kawhi Leonard not playing games, he has a point. Kawhi has to play these games. The Clippers have some chemistry issues. I don't think the team with their full roster played together more than 25 times for the entire season. That is inexcusable. They need to play more games together, and he needs to be the one that spearheads that team. He needs to be the one that sets the example. If injuries happen, no one is holding that against you. No one will hold that against you, and injuries occur. Patrick Beverley got injured at certain points in the season. What's the shooter that comes off the bench? I forgot his name. Landry Shamet, he got injured at certain points. That's fine. People get injured. But the whole load management thing and all of this stuff, not now. Because now the team needs you. And in fact, they're going to be playing 10 less games overall. So 60 plus games is absolutely doable, given the fact that the team had a long hiatus due to the global pandemic and the fact that the bubble, you weren't there for that long and you've been off for the past 2 months. So Kawhi Leonard needs to play more games. He's my favorite player in basketball, but this year things need to be a little bit different. So what I want to know from you guys is quite simple. Do you agree with me that, listen, Kawhi Leonard, needs to play at least 62 games to put the Clippers in a better position of contention this season, especially from a chemistry standpoint, and therefore it causes people to not unnecessarily criticize you. And people, you can say at the end of the day, hey, listen, I put in my best effort. I played as many games as I could, and you know what? If we didn't get the results we set for ourselves, that's one thing. But don't give people reason to criticize you, and the team needs to build their chemistry. And I think and I hope that Tyronn Lue can implement some of these things that I'm asking for with the Clippers this season, because they can ill afford to have a situation where Kawhi Leonard plays like 45 games this season. It can't happen, because what happens if they reduce the season to 40 games? You're going to play, what, 30 games? So, no, it can't happen. So that's just my opinions on that, and that's what I think about that, to be quite honest with you. Now, I want to welcome you guys again to the second segment of the show here. In this segment, what I want to talk about is, are PG and Kawhi Leonard the best defensive duo in the NBA? And I think it's a pretty interesting topic to delve into in this particular episode, in this particular segment of the show here. Because we've spoken about the best duos in the NBA ad nauseum, right? We all know the best duos, but for some of you guys that kind of forgotten it, because I know it was a big theme last season, tandems in the NBA. Let me just give you guys a quick rundown of some of the best duos in the NBA in no particular order, okay? Let's talk about the defending champs in LeBron James, who's a Pantheon great, top 10 player, top 5, whatever, basketball player of all time. And then you have Anthony Davis. These guys are really good. LeBron James probably the best player at his position of all time. Some people will argue that it was Larry Bird, but the only difference with LeBron James is a little bit older. He's about 36 years old. And then you have Anthony Davis, who's a stud, man. Anyway you slice it, the dude can ball. Then you have, of course, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are also one of the top NBA duos out there, for sure. Premier. Top duos out there. Then you have John Wall and Avery Bradley. Now, let me just say this. John Wall, yes, he's been injured, but John Wall can get you a solid 21 points a game, 7 plus assists per game. And Avery Bradley last season averaged about 30 points a game. So these guys are a dynamic scoring backcourt, very explosive, very quick, especially John Wall. John Wall may be the quickest player on the break, and probably Russell Westbrook is up there. Another top duo in the NBA, of course, is Russell Westbrook and James Harden. Now, both of these guys are two former regular season MVP winners. Russell Westbrook led the league in triple doubles, I believe, for 2 or 3 straight seasons. James Harden has led the league at least for the past 2 or 3 seasons in scoring. He's a monster. He's a scoring machine for the Houston Rockets, but also he's a great playmaker. He can hit some big shots, although sometimes he tends to come up short in the playoffs. But nevertheless, these two guys are box office and certainly amongst the biggest draws in the NBA. So no one can dispute the fact that Russell Westbrook and James Harden are a legitimate, bona fide, powerhouse of a duo. Now, some people may say, I'm gonna throw them in there, but some just for the giggles of it. Some people may say Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. Joel Embiid is a stud when he's healthy. Ben Simmons is a fantastic player, especially on the defensive end, playmaker. The only issue that he doesn't shoot much. I wouldn't put these two guys at the top there. Then you have Giannis Antetokounmpo and Chris Middleton. Giannis Antetokounmpo, 2-time back-to-back regular season MVP, recently Defensive Player of the Year. We all know Giannis Antetokounmpo is a monster, puts up monster numbers. It's going to get you close to 30 points a game, 13 rebounds, a block, and a steal. And then probably about 4 or 5 assists a game. So Giannis Antetokounmpo is just on another level. And Chris Middleton is a respectable all-star running mate for Giannis Antetokounmpo, right? Giannis Antetokounmpo's talent productivity is so high. If you throw in Chris Middleton, you average the two out. They're a great NBA duo. Then, of course, you have the Splash Brothers in Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson, who we're going to get to a little bit later in the show. Of course, you can't forget Stephen Curry, man. Unanimous MVP, regular season MVP, probably the greatest shooter in the history of basketball. Just an amazing basketball player, sensational. In a way, kind of revolutionized basketball. Made the three-point shot very popular. And of course, you have Klay Thompson, who one can argue is probably a better shooter than Stephen Curry. He's been a member of the 50-40-90 club, shooting 50% from the field, 40% over 40%. from the three-point line and over 90% from the free throw line, and I think Stephen Curry certainly has done the same. A very efficient, dynamic scoring backcourt who's always on the move, very hard to the game plan for, very hard to deal with. So these guys are definitely up there. Then we have a new addition in Kyrie Irving, whose skills are up there with anybody that ever played basketball, especially from the offensive end of the floor and his ball handling. And Kevin Durant, who some people may argue, certainly Skip Bayless argues, that, hey, listen, this is the best player in basketball, hands down. Skip Bayless feels like Kevin Durant is the best player in basketball. And if you want to make that argument, it's going to be a hard one. I'm not going to have any issues with you making that type of argument because KD is out of this world with his talent. He is out of this world with his talent. And the only issue is that, yes, he's coming off an Achilles tear, but last time we saw KD, man, the guy was averaging 26, shooting over 50% from the field, man. Like, the dude is just a monster. He's also been a part of the 50-40-90 club and also led the league in scoring all these things. So Kevin Durant is just up there with Kyrie Irving, and we can even throw in, Nikola Jokic and Murray. You can throw them in there as well as being one of the top duos, and obviously Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert, especially for his defensive specialties that he has. But with that being said, though, who is the best defensive duo in the NBA? Well, we have to look at it as far as where does a lot of the scoring in the NBA come from? A lot of it comes from, in at least today's NBA, comes from the perimeter. There aren't a lot of traditional back to the basket bigs out there that are going to go out there, back you down, and try to drop step and score and with hook shots and all of this stuff, bang and all of this stuff. And today's NBA is mostly about the three and the drive, right? And perimeter players are thriving. You see players that probably in a different era in basketball wouldn't average as many points as they are in today's NBA. But in today's NBA, given the fact that there's so many more possessions and teams are skewing towards a three-point shot, more three-pointers are being taken, you really got to keep an eye out for these scoring, wings and guards. And even point guards, right? So being able to stick with these guys is no small feat. And when I have to think about a defensive duo in the NBA, there's no defensive duo better than Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Excuse me, and I don't even think it's close. Obviously, with an honorable mention to Jimmy Butler, but we're talking about duos because Jimmy Butler is certainly a top 5 defender from the perimeter in the NBA, no doubt about it. But he doesn't have, another running mate. So I felt like I had to mention him. And, of course, Ben Simmons, of course. But Joel Embiid doesn't play that type of defense. But if we're talking about defensive wing defenders, it's not even close. It's not even close. Any of the players I listed on the list. Now, if LeBron was younger, maybe 5, 6, 7 years younger, then one can make an argument for him possibly. But even in his prime, LeBron James wasn't that great of a defensive player. Of the top 5, he's only made, I think, 5 all-first defensive teams. About 5. So, compared to Kobe, who made 9, Jordan, all these guys who made 9. So I wouldn't put him there. But Kawhi Leonard is a 2-time defensive player of the year. 2-time defensive player of the year. Playing basically perimeter defense. Outstanding. And Paul George, regardless of everything that I said about him, Paul George is no joke on the defensive end of the ball. Like, he is an elite perimeter defender. Elite. If you watch, Paul George knows how to play angles. He has very quick hands. He has a lot of lateral quickness. He can beat you to the spots. He has great defensive instincts. He has good length to him. Paul George is a very great defensive player. That's one thing I can't hold against him, and that's one of the benefits of having him play alongside Kawhi Leonard. He just needs to be a little bit more consistent on the offensive end and make sure when they're in high leverage moments, he keeps his head on. Right? But Kawhi Leonard has 2 Defensive Player of the Year's awards, and Paul George, 2 seasons ago, finished top 3 in Defensive Player of the Year award, and include MVP, but let's just focus on the defensive side of the ball. So for me, I think these are 2, without a doubt, the best of the best defensive duos in the NBA. And I don't think it's really close. Maybe there's some other duo out there that I'm missing, but I don't think they come close to these 2 guys here. I mean, some of you may say I'm biased, but if I'm biased, okay, name the duo that's better on the defensive side of the basketball than Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. I don't think there's a duo out there, to be quite honest with you. Again, if you're tuning into the show just now, if you haven't subscribed to our Twitter handles, we have them linked in the description below, so you guys so we can stay in contact and we can communicate, not just in the comment section. So be sure to check out the Dreamerspro Twitter, and also our Dreamerspro podcast, which is also linked in the description below. So yeah, these two sit at the top of the food chain when it comes to defensive duels in the NBA. But if you guys feel differently, if you disagree with me, whatever you guys think, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. Again, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell if you haven't already, and if you're enjoying the content, make sure you hit the like button, as I said before. And now let's just finish off here with the third segment, and this is going to be a pretty interesting segment for me because I haven't spent much time talking about these guys, and I will be talking about them more as this season progresses, given the fact that they're going to be healthy now, and we didn't see them for a long, for a stint last season because of injuries. But some people forget just how good, well, not some, but yeah, probably some people forget just how good the Golden State Warriors were or are. And my question is, can they dominate the Western Conference again? That's essentially the question that I want to answer here in this particular segment of the show here. Can they dominate the Western Conference? Now, before I get into that, I want to give you guys some perspective and some history. The Golden State Warriors have dominated the NBA for the past probably 5 or 6 years. Without a doubt. They've won 3 out of the last 5 championships. They won the championship in 2015, 2017, and 2018. Obviously, the back-to-back championship when they had Kevin Durant, who won Finals MVP back-to-back, and undoubtedly the best player on that team. No one can argue that at all. If you watch the games and you know what basketball is, no one is going to make an argument that KD was not the best the best player on the Golden State Warriors, and it wasn't even close. As they say, there are levels to this. You saw when they were the Golden State Warriors, I believe it was last season in the playoffs, when they were playing against the Clippers, a gritty Clippers team, and Pat Beverly and these guys were chirping back and forth with KD. And in one game, Kevin Durant just decided, you know what, man, I'm about to put my goon down on these dudes, and that's exactly what he did. He put his goon down on the Clippers and dropped 50. And at the end of that, he was just like, KD was like, I'm tired of these dudes, these flies or whatever you want to call it. And at the end of the game, the press conference, they were like, we did everything. KD undoubtedly, was the reason they went back to back, without a doubt. Now the Warriors have been in the NBA Finals since 2015 all the way to 2019, excluding this last season when they were injured. Think about that. So they have dominated basketball. And now these guys are going to be coming back this season with a vengeance. People are going to be asking the question, where are the Golden State Warriors in all of this Western Conference talk, right? And the Western Conference is loaded. You got the Lakers, you got the Clippers, you got the Denver Nuggets, who are rising, you got the Rockets, you got the Dallas Mavericks, and you got the Utah Jazz. But in all of that, no one has been talking about the Golden State Warriors. What about the Warriors? And the reason why these guys are going to be a really big threat is because of these two players in the Splash Brothers and Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson. So let me just give you guys a quick rundown of Stephen Curry here. Now, last season, he had a down season, right? Because he didn't play that many games. He only played 5 games last season. But the season before, Stephen Curry averaged 27 points a game, shot 47% from the field, 43.7%, almost 44% from the three-point line, 91.6% so 92% from the free throw line, got you 5 rebounds, 5 assists, and 1.3 steals. That's Stephen Curry, y'all. That's Stephen Curry. Stephen Curry's no joke. Like, let's just be honest about it. The guy's a 3-time NBA champion, 2 times regular season MVP winner, 6-time All-Star. He's been on 6 All-NBA teams, led the league in scoring in 2016, led the league in steals as well in 2016. A part of it, as I said before, in the 50-40-90 club, shooting over 50% from the field, 40% from the three-point line, and over 90% from the free throw line. He's done that before. Won the three-point contest and all of that, has the most three-pointers in the history of basketball. That's Stephen Curry, and this dude is going to be healthy again coming back, and watch out for him. And he's still young. He's only 32 years old. And then you got his running mate and Klay Thompson, who played last season. What they said he 2018, 2019 season. Okay, the guy played in the 2018, 2019 season, he played 78 games, averaged 21.5 points a game, shot again 46.7% from the field. And this guy's mostly taking 3-pointers. He shot 40% from the 3, but he's attempting 7.7, making 3.1. So the majority of his shots, or a good amount of his points, are coming from the 3-point line. Right? 9 points per game are coming from the 3-point line from this guy. He shot 81% from 82, almost 82% from the free throw line. Got you 3.8 rebounds, 2.4 assists, 1.1 steals a game. Right? And now with the departure of Kevin Durant, I expect his offensive scoring numbers to go up. And remember, Klay Thompson is the dude that has the highest scoring quarter in the history of the NBA with 37 points in a quarter. Now, that accomplishment, I think, at times gets overblown because of who he's playing with. You got to think, you're playing on the court with Stephen Curry and Kevin Durant. No one can double team you. Number one. Number two, think about the amount of spacing that it provides you to shoot. So with that much space, you can shoot because no one is coming to double you. And with his quick release, there's nothing you can do to him. So if he gets hot, it's conceivable that the guy can score 37 points in a quarter, which he did. Now, Klay Thompson is a 3-time NBA champion, 5-time All-Star. He's been on 2 All-NBA teams, also been on a defensive team, All-NBA second defensive team in 2019, also a 3-point contest winner. And these guys are going to be the major reason why the Golden State Warriors are going to be very, very, very dangerous this season in the Western Conference. Now, let me say this. The Western Conference got better. It wasn't as if teams in the Western Conference were sitting there on their laurels, okay, let's wait for the Golden State Warriors to come back, and then we'll start taking things seriously. The Western Conference has gotten better, right? Much better, in fact. When the Warriors were going through their run, the real threat that they had, let's say, is the Houston Rockets, probably, or in the San Antonio Spurs when Kawhi and these guys were there. But other than that, now the Lakers got better. They're the defending champions. They're going to want to come back and prove a point and try to repeat. The Clippers are going to come back after wetting the bed the way they did last season. They're going to come back with a vengeance and have a lot to prove this season. They're going to be on a mission again. Kawhi Leonard and these guys are going to be focused. So they're going to be good. I think they had the number 2 record in the NBA last season. They're not going anywhere. Then you have the Denver Nuggets, who surprised a lot of people, and they're usually in the top 4, top 5 seeds in the Western Conference. So they're going to be there. The Houston Rockets, I don't know what's happening with the Houston Rockets, although they have a new coach and is yet to see Paul Silas, his son, who's a former coach of LeBron James, first coach of LeBron James. He's going to be coaching the Houston Rockets. So it's going to be interesting to see what these guys are going to do this season, given the fact that they're going to have a new coach and all of this. But still, the Houston Rockets still have a very talented core. They still have 2 regular season MVPs on their team. They still have the reigning scoring champion in the league. They still have Russell Westbrook, the most athletic probably point guard in the history of the NBA, and a guy that's led the league in triple doubles for 3 straight years or so. They still have these guys. They still going to feel like they have something to prove, especially Russell Westbrook. So they're not just going to roll over. You have the Dallas Mavericks with Luka Doncic, who a lot of people are expecting to take another leap this season, who are expecting the Dallas Mavericks to get even better this season. You have Kristaps Porzingis. You have these guys there. They're not just going to be sitting there, on the sidelines watching the show. They're going to want to have a piece of the action this season. They finished as the number 7 seed last season. They may be aiming for a top 4 seed this season. And, of course, you have the Utah Jazz with Donovan Mitchell and these guys. And the Nuggets, as I said before, they're going to get better. Jamal Murray is going to get better. Nikola Jokic is going to get better. So the Western Conference is going to be packed. So the Golden State Warriors, can they dominate the West? I don't know. And I think it's going to be one of the most intriguing questions all throughout this season to see if they can capture that glory again, because Stephen A. Smith went on ESPN and said, I expect the Golden State Warriors to dominate and go to the Western Conference Finals. Okay, can they do it? Absolutely. Will they? I don't know. Because there's so many other good teams out there. There are other players out there that are better than Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson. Let's just be honest. LeBron and these guys are better. AD is better than Klay. Kawhi is better than Steph and Klay. Right? So there are a lot of great players out there. So for me, I think it's going to be a wait and see game. Now, do they have a shot to do it? Absolutely. With the Splash Brothers, the core that they have with Draymond Green, all of these guys. But just don't think that the Western Conference, these guys are just going to, the other teams that I just mentioned are going to be sitting on the side waiting to roll over and say, hey, man, listen, man, let's just give it up. The Warriors are back. Let's get the hell out of the way. Y'all crazy. These guys are going to be hungry too. And as I said, a lot of teams have written off the Clippers. Don't write off the Clippers just yet. If they come with the right mindset and the right focus and Tyronn Lue gets them mentally focused and stops a lot of the bad habits that we were hearing happen last season. Watch out for the Clippers too. I'm saying it right now. Right? Last season, all of us picked them to win the chip. Ain't nothing changed yet. I'm not changing my mind yet because I still think they're the best team in the West, but we'll wait and see. That's just my opinion. So the question is, can the Golden State Warriors dominate the Western Conference? That's really the question I'm throwing to you guys. What do you think? Do you think they can make it to the top of the Western Conference? What do you got? Do you think they're going to be a top 4 seed? Do you think that, do you think they're going to go back to the finals? Whatever you guys think, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. Again, if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure you go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell to be notified whenever we drop our content. Once again, this is Charles here from the Dreamerspro Show. Wishing you guys an amazing day. Catch you guys on the next episode. Peace.